he does have ties to Muslim extremists. I don't know.
In the aftermath of the assassination of Iran's prominent nuclear scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, Iranians are calling for a decisive response on the perpetrators of this act of state-sponsored terrorism.
ما انتقام سخت از آمریکا و اسرائیل هستش و اینکه دیگه نباید در NPT بمونیم. تمام جاسوسان و بازرسان آژانس باید اخراج و تعیین. تکبیر! الله اکبر!
The act is not new. The players involved may also not be new to targeting Iranians, whether it be abroad or inside Iran. There is a history of fluctuating in terms of intensity and frequency against Iran. Hillary Clinton, the ex-Secretary of State during former US President Barack Obama's time, once said she wanted regime change in Iran. I too am deeply concerned about Iranian aggression and need to confront it, she said. There is absolutely no reason to trust Iran. But she had a distrust but verify policy towards Iran.
We will make clear to Iran that our national commitment to prevention will not waver depending on who's in office. It's permanent.
Afterwards, ex-President Barack Obama switched her with former Secretary of State John Kerry, who was part of the JCPOA talks and ended up endorsing it too on July 14, 2015. It was then endorsed by the United Nations Security Council via Resolution 2231 just 6 days later on July 20, 2015. Then, with the rise of US President Donald Trump, Iran again continues to witness the hawkish side of Washington politics. Ever since Trump pulled out of the nuclear deal in 2018 with Iran, he couldn't stop expressing his urge for more talks just so he could have his signature on a possible new deal. Iran refused. Trump started making threats and curses.
Right. And Iran knows that, and they've been put on notice. If you fuck around with us, if you do something bad to us, to do things to you that have never been done before.
Trump then began rallying up Persian Gulf kingdoms and Israel to form a coalition under the guise of normalization with Israel. The coalition is now growing into a military one, with US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo recently visiting Israel, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE and Saudi Arabia. With the exception of Qatar, Oman and Kuwait, all the Persian Gulf states view Iran as an enemy. But most of them host foreign US military bases and assets. Israel seems to be the manager or head of this coalition against Iran. The Israeli military has instructed to prepare for the possibility that the US will conduct a military strike against Iran before President Trump leaves office, according to the US-based Axios Media Corporation. Headlines in America also pointed out and confirmed the same. Apparently, Trump was seeking ways to finalize a strike on Iran before he leaves office. According to the New York Times, President Trump asked senior advisors in an Oval Office meeting whether he had options to take action against Iran's main nuclear site in the coming weeks. The United States this week rapidly deployed several heavy nuclear bombers to the Western Asian region. That B-52-8 Stratofortress long-range multi-nuclear bomber planes were seen flying towards Israeli airspace en route to the base where they will be stationed, likely in Qatar. All of this is supposed to make it ever so hard for Joe Biden, if he ends up being elected as the next president, to get back into the JCPOA, just like he previously promised. According to solid evidence over the year, the American government has always been responsible for all the terrorist attacks on Iran. Joe Biden, the future president of the United States, and his administration should also take responsibility as well. US, Israel, and European countries are also responsible for the assassination. The EU has laws banning attacks on civilian enterprises. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was engaged in researching coronavirus and the vaccine made by his team, and the country's first COVID-19 test kits were produced in a research center headed by assassinated Iranian physicist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. This was echoed by ex-CIA chief John Brennan. He blasted the killing of Iran's top nuclear scientist, calling the assassination highly reckless. He even went on to say such an act of state-sponsored terrorism would be flagrant violation of international law and encourage more governments to carry out lethal attacks against foreign officials. Bernie Sanders also said in a tweet that the assassination of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was reckless, provocative and illegal. As a new administration takes power, it was clearly intended to undermine US-Iran diplomacy. We must not allow that to happen. Diplomacy, not murder, is the best path forward. State-sponsored terrorism is what Iran accuses the US of for putting sanctions on Iran's medical and food imports after it left the JCPOA and violated UNSC resolution that lifted all sanctions on Iran. That's not all. The US also assassinated Iranian Lieutenant General Qasem Soleimani and deputy head of Iraq's Popular Mobilization Unit, al-Muhandis, in Baghdad, Iraq, in January of this year. That attack triggered international outcry and condemnation against US and Israeli acts of state-sponsored terrorism. Just 9 years ago, before the JCPOA signing and during the time period when talks accelerated, Western countries were trying to put the pressure on Iran by sanctions, and it seems that this was not effective, so again Iran's enemies decided to do another assassination operation. From 2010 to 2020, at least 6 Iranian nuclear scientists have been assassinated. In January 2010, Masoud Ali Mohammadi, Iranian quantum field theorist and physicist, was assassinated. That same year, on November 29th, Majid Shahriari, an Iranian nuclear scientist and engineer who worked with the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran, was assassinated. On July 23, 2011, Dariush Rezai-Nejad, a physics professor, was assassinated. On January 11, 2012, Mustafa Ahmadi Roshan, an Iranian nuclear scientist, was assassinated. Many of these assassinations have been linked to the Israeli spy agency, the Mossad, in collaboration with Western countries, mainly the United States. This was revealed by countless articles from the mainstream media, almost always some officials. Iranians have grown wary of US actions and have promised revenge. The leader of the Islamic Revolution, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, in a message condemned assassination of Iranian nuclear scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, ordering officials to take action to punish the masterminds and perpetrators of the terror attack. He also noted that Iranians must continue in pursuing and continuing the martyr's scientific and technical efforts in all the sectors in which he was engaged. For Iran, each time an assassination like this happens, the key is to continue, as more innovation and development of key sectors will only make the country stronger and less dependent on those down. According to the Iranian president, Trump wants to drag Iran into something bigger. Undoubtedly, this horrific terrorist incident is the result of the inability of the sworn enemies of the Iranian nation to impede the scientific movement and the capabilities of the great nation of Iran. It is the result of successive defeats in the region and in political arenas. It seems evident that Iran's enemies are not happy about its scientific achievements and its development even after decades of sanctions on it. This, they feel, that they have no other choice but to try and sabotage it. But Iran has stressed that the nation will continue the path of Fakhrizadeh and his nuclear work will go with efforts to disturb it.